This is amazing. You know, I keep saying for people that love to fish, fly fish that is, one of the biggest challenges is hunting for fish that are hunting for food. Oh man, there he goes. And there I go. Okay, it's a gorgeous bonefish. I'm going to take my glasses off so I can appreciate how brilliant he is. Wow, is that sun ever bright? These things are so powerful. You know, our guide Tadashi could see the bonefish from about 200 yards away. He said, oh, many bonefish. You know, one of the most exciting type of fly fishing in salt water is to stock bonefish on the flats. Doesn't matter if it's the flats that are exposed to the oceans or fishing them right in the mangroves. It's so exciting to spot the fish and then to have the right fly and to cast ahead of it, see it take the fly and then take off like a bullet. Now, I just want to show you some of the flies that work really well down here off the south coast of Cuba. You can tell from the box that I've got open for you that a lot of the patterns that I use here are very natural colors. Some of them have legs on them, some of them don't. What I'll do is I'll pop a couple of these out here to explain to you what the difference is. For example, this particular fly, you can see can resemble something like a crab or even a shrimp, but it has eyes, weighted eyes. So this particular fly would work well in slightly deeper water and if there's no grass on the bottom, because it's going to sink at a certain speed. If I'm fishing some of the shallower flats, and especially where there's grass, I'm just going to flip this over here. I'll show you some of the patterns that are very similar, but they don't have heavy eyes. So here's another fly that I'll show you. You can see that it's got little rubber legs, and it's got a tail, and see it has the eyes. The eyes are actual beads, so they don't sink that fast. And this particular one has monofilament weed guards, so I can bend the weed guards back into position, so when I'm going over the grass will go over the weed guard and not get caught on the hook. The standard size hooks for fishing for bonefish is either a number 6 or a number 8 hook, so these are not very large. So these work really well in clear water because the colors are very natural. If I'm fishing some murkier water where there's been wave action, I'm going to go to some of the brighter flies like you see here. These are Crazy Charlies, and you can see that they're very metallic. Then I've got some Clouser minnows here that are chartreuse with, again, weighted eyes, okay? So see how gaudy and bright that particular fly is compared to the two that are in my hand? This fly will work really well if you get into murky waters, and a lot of times when there is a tide change and you've got a little bit of current and the water gets stirred up, that particular fly will work really well fished off the bottom. Remember, whenever you're casting the bonefish with any of these flies, as soon as you see the bonefish approach, make sure to start stripping faster and faster to make it look like its prey is trying to get away. That's the trick to get them to commit and grab that fly. He's close. Yeah, it's a trevally, you're right. Now, you know he's going to splash a lot when we get up. Won't fit?
We're going to walk with it.
Okay, you bring him up. How heavy do you think this one is?
15 kilo.
15 kilo? 30 pound, that's a nice trevally. Beautiful fish. Just be careful if your head shakes. Now these are big fish, so you have to be careful. The one thing we should explain to them, Itamar, is how sharp the fish are, even here. I have this glove, but you have to be so careful you don't get cut there. Now, is it okay if we release him? When you're fishing saltwater anywhere in the world, you really should have the right gear with you, using saltwater rods and reels, and change all your lures to saltwater hooks. Now, some of the lures that we brought have saltwater hooks, but unfortunately, I just brought my heaviest freshwater fishing gear. So what I'm holding up here is a classic trolling rod. This particular one is designed to be used for divers, dipsy divers, when we're trolling. So you can see the rod is rated from 17 to 30 pound test line. And this particular one has roller guides all the way up because it's designed for trolling. But you know what? I can also fish it for jigging here in salt water. And then what I've done, I've matched this with a counter reel. It's an RSC counter reel. So you can see that the counter is right there. So every time before I drop my lure, and in this case I'm going to be vertical jigging, I'm just going to zero my counter. Okay, and the line that I've got on here is 80-pound test titanium braid. So it's very heavy line with a wire leader. Now, when you're fishing in salt water, especially for some of the fish that tend to feed on deeper water bait fish, using vertical jigging spoons like this Williamson is very important. You can see that it's got a bit of a contoured edge. Okay, so this part is almost scoured out, but this is very heavy. It probably weighs about 300 grams. And back in Canada, most of the time when using a jig, you hook it so that the hook is pointing down and the fish can hit it. But here in salt water, so that you don't get hooked on the bottom, this is actually the right way to hook the jig, the vertical jig. So the birds, look at, they're feeding again. You can see the birds just jumping right all over them. There's got to be hundreds of fish. He's going to try to head them off, so he's a good guy. This is where you got to hold on. I mean, there's never a dull moment here at Serena Marina Golf and Residences. They all seem to be about the same size. They're 4 or 5 pounds. But boy, are they fighting good. Aren't they gorgeous? You talk about packs of killer fish. You know, we're having a great time trolling here off the northwest coast of Mexico. And as you can see, we're not that far out from shore, and we're fishing some of these islands. And we're trolling, but we're using a little bit heavier gear than you would back home for trolling. We've actually got Magnum rods. These particular ones are spinning rods, and they're rated for 15 to 30 pound test. This is a 2-piece, 8-foot rod, and you can see that it's loaded with a pretty large, it's called an XI spinning reel. And we've got pretty heavy braid, it's 50-pound test. Now this rod is ideal because you can troll with it. We've caught some nice rooster fish on it and big jacks. And if we see some fish that are busting on bait fish closer to shore, if the captain slows down the boat or stops it, it's very easy for us to reel up and start casting away. So with these outfits, we can almost reach the shoreline. Now when we're running live bait, we're trolling with bait casting rods. And again, this is bait caster as part of the Magnum series. This particular one is also a 2-piece. It's 6'9", but it's rated for heavier line, 20 to 50 pound test monofilament. We have it loaded with a Rapala Hydrus reel. So you can see this one has a metal body, has very good gears, and it's also a counter reel. So this reel enables us, if we left off the drag and put the clicker on, to have the line set really light, so that when we're running live bait like the large mullet that Lewis was rigging up on these big saltwater hooks, as soon as a fish hits, we let the fish take line and we hear the clicker going, and then all we do is take the clicker off, and when the fish hasn't taken enough line, then we engage the drag. We tighten it up a little bit and set the hook. So these outfits will handle 80-pound test line no problem in a braid, even though it's rated for 50-pound monofilament, because the diameter of the braid is so thin. So between these two outfits, if you're planning on doing some fishing down south, or maybe you fish for large fish back home, you know, off the Pacific coast for halibut, bottom fish, and even troll for large muskie and lake trout, these two outfits are ideal. We're just trolling out from the beach, and I don't know what I hooked. The fish almost spooled me. Could be a big jack, could be a rooster fish, could be a big mackerel. Oh, it's a nice rooster fish. All right, look at that. Oh, what a run. Beautiful. Just be very careful, Jonathan. So you can get these, what's the season on the rooster fish?
Mostly this kind of fish, you get it during the winter.
That's perfect for Canadians and Americans.
We only have like 2 months here that is the winter.
Okay, I'm gonna get him back in the water. He's such a beautiful fish. And they're almost transparent, much like a bonefish. So actually this is shallow enough that I can be walking here. He's probably going to take off as soon as I put pressure on him. I can be walking here in this water with my sunglasses on, and I might just do that. He thinks I'm a predator, but I'm not going to hurt him. And that fish is over 3 feet in length. Just got to adjust my rod here. Just going to hold them up so you can appreciate even the smaller tarpon, how beautiful they are. Okay, that's exciting. What do you like about tarpon fishing? Everything. I gotta just be ready to bow the rod. He's coming up. Beautiful, beautiful. I think we're into about 7 jumps. And I'm not gonna try to be too fancy here. Okay. Just think about this for a minute.